Wouldn't it be great to know ahead of time which actions cause bad karma in your life and which actions cause good karma in your life? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 causes of karma. Stay tuned. Hi there, I'm Lisa ENGLES-WITTER, and welcome to my channel where I help spiritual seekers just like you to get simple answers to deep spiritual questions. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I invite you to do that. I have new videos coming out every week. In this video, we're going to talk about the 3 causes of karma. I want to unpack that for you. So let's go ahead and dive in. So let's begin with a really quick overview of what karma is. Karma is simply a Sanskrit word that means action, but in Eastern spiritual tradition, the idea of karma is that it's your actions plus the consequences of your actions and then the reactions to the consequences of your actions. So karma itself is actually a very, very complex process, and the teachings tell us that karma is what leads us to experience suffering in our life. So if you didn't get a chance to watch my video on karma and what karma is, the link to that is below in the description, so you can check that out when you have some time. Now, in Eastern spiritual tradition, they say that certain actions will actually cause us more karma, will create more karma in our life. So wouldn't it be good for us to know what those actions are, so maybe we can avoid creating more karma in our life, and maybe we could avoid suffering. Now again, I'm really simplifying things here because karma theory is very, very complex, but I want to give you a sweeping overview of the causes of karma. So the first cause of suffering or karma is ignorance. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, that makes sense. Ignorance, the more knowledge you have, the better. But the teachings are very, very specific. They're not talking about any type of ignorance. They're talking about a very specific type of ignorance. So ignorance of what? The teachings tell us that it's ignorance of who we really are. In Buddhism, they refer to it as your Buddha nature. In yoga tradition, they refer to it as your true self. When you don't know your Buddha nature, when you don't know your true self, you don't have a felt experience of it, then it's going to lead to actions that will create more suffering in your life. So the teachings tell us that the vast majority of humanity suffers from a case of mistaken identity. I'm going to say that again because it's actually quite profound. The teachings tell us that the vast majority of humanity suffers from a case of mistaken identity. So there are very specific meditations and inquiries in Buddhism and Vedanta that allow us to have the experience of who we really are, of our true self. And I'll make another video on that because it's a whole process and it's a journey in and of itself. But what I want to say is that this type of knowledge isn't knowledge of our true self. Knowledge of our Buddha nature cannot be read in a book. It cannot be intellectually understood. It has to be experienced. It has to be a felt experience in our body, in our being. And that's why meditation is key in yoga and Buddhism, because to move past this type of ignorance, the ignorance of who we really are, the only way we can truly understand it is through some type of meditation practice. All right? So let's move on to the second cause of karma. Now, the second cause of karma, the teachings tell us, is desire. And some of you might be saying, oh no, what do you mean? I can't desire things and on top of that, in our Western world, we're encouraged to desire things. I mean, that's what our world, that is what marketing is all about, is getting us to desire things. But what the teachings tell us is that any action that's motivated by desire will cause suffering. So let's see if I can unpack this for you just a little bit, because this can, like I said, be a hard pill for Westerners to swallow, because it seems to go directly against anything that we've ever been told about creating what we want in our life. So like I said, we've been taught to ask ourselves, what do I want in order to create my goals? And that's how we create our goals. We figure out what is it that we want, and then we go for it. So that being said, desire always leads to suffering, the teachings tell us, because the thing that we desire is impermanent. It's ever changing. So it can't bring us lasting happiness. And essentially, when we're coming from a place of desire and we're thinking, and do this exercise yourself here if you can for a moment. Just think of something that we're going to make a really easy analogy here. In my past life, I was a personal trainer when I was in my 20s. And, my clients came to me because they wanted either to lose weight, they wanted to change their body or their health in some way. If you think about it, our body is always changing. It's never the same. The body that you're in right now is not the same body that you were in when you were born, or that you were in when you were in elementary school or high school or college. Your body has changed over time, hasn't it? Right? And not only has your body changed over time, your body is impermanent. While we might not like to think about it in that way, the truth is that at some point in time, you will die, and your body will die as well, and your body will turn to dust. It will go back into the earth, right? So when our desire is motivated by something, a grasping for something that is impermanent, it will always bring about suffering, because we are seeking happiness in something that is changing and that is impermanent, that we will not be there at some point. Now, our body is something that we can look at, but we could look at anything that is outside of us in what the teachings call not real. You could look at a house. I want a house. I have a desire to have a house. So I buy the house that's the perfect house, and it seems like the perfect house at the time that I buy it. But of course, things change. The house starts to break down. It gets a leak here, a leak there, or it's, I live in Northern California, and a lot of people lost their houses because of natural disaster. A house is impermanent. It's not going to bring you happiness. So whenever our desire to achieve fulfillment, to achieve happiness is placed in actions to acquire something that is changing or impermanent, it will bring suffering and will create karma for us. Now again, this is getting into nuances, and this starts to get very complex very quickly. I'm just trying to give you the essence of it, that any action that we take that's based in desire will cause karma, will create karma, and karma is what creates suffering. All right, so let's move on to the third cause of karma. Now, the third cause of karma is aversion. So any action that's motivated by aversion, for like a pushing away, right, is also going to create karma, and therefore will create suffering. So what do I mean by aversion? Now again, the Eastern spiritual teachings tell us that aversion is simply a thwarted desire. So let me unpack that for a moment for you. The teachings tell us that everything that we have an aversion to, that we feel like, ugh, I don't want that, actually has a basis in wanting something or in desiring something. When we want something and we don't get it, what happens? What happens when you want something and you don't get it? Well, when I want something and I don't get it, it creates maybe disappointment in the beginning. Then maybe that disappointment turns into frustration. That frustration lingers for a while, and eventually that frustration is going to turn into anger. Okay, anger is like the hottest, quickest form of aversion, because it happens sometimes so instantaneously we don't even see the other patterns of disappointment and frustration that were bubbling below that created that anger. So anger is very, very dangerous because it's immediate, and it's almost as if we have no control over it. Sometimes if it gets so hot, it will create a reaction that is so immediate and instantaneous, it will feel like it didn't even come from us. It will feel like we were possessed by something other than us. Sometimes it happens that we get so angry and we act out of that anger that we're like, I know that this action isn't the right action, that it's not going to produce results that I want in my life, but it's as if the anger is so consuming. So that's why the ancient teachings really say that anger is one of the worst poisons that we can deal with, especially when we're talking about karma. So if you go to the source of anger, and if you think about a time in your life where you had this type of anger, like a consuming type of anger, if you go to the source of that, you will probably realize at some point that that anger came from not getting something that you wanted to get, whether it was something physical, like perhaps you wanted to get that promotion because you needed more money and your coworker got that promotion that you really wanted to get. So then you got angry at your coworker or angry at your boss or whatever it was. Or you wanted something non-physical. Maybe you wanted to be seen, or you wanted to be heard by your spouse, and they weren't seeing you or they weren't hearing you, and it just kept happening where, no, they're not getting me, they're not seeing me, they're not understanding me, and then eventually it erupted into anger and then into an argument or a fight. So again, simple example, but I want you to start seeing how these particular 3 causes of karma work in your life. So recapping once again, that when actions are motivated either by ignorance, meaning ignorance of who we really are, or by desire, or by aversion, and remember that aversion is really just a thwarted desire, all 3 of those are going to create karmic seeds or karma in your life. All right, so it's time for the question of the day. What insights have you had about yourself based on these 3 causes of karma, and which of these 3 causes of karma do you tend to operate from? Ignorance, desire, or aversion? Let me know in the comments below. And I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you want to learn more about karma, I have a 90-minute masterclass that I recently taught. You can watch the replay of it for free. All the details are in a link right below this video in the description. And I want to thank you all once again for joining me, and have a wonderful day. Namaste.